Letters of Herod and Pilate. The death of Pilate, who condemned Jesus. Now, whereas Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans, was suffering from a grievous sickness, and hearing that there was at Jerusalem a certain physician, Jesus by name, who healed all diseases by his word alone, not knowing that the Jews and Pilate had put him to death, he had thus bade one of his attendants, Volosianus by name, saying, "Go as quickly as thou canst across the sea, and tell Pilate, my servant and friend, to send me this physician to restore me to my original health." And Volosianus, having heard the order of the emperor, immediately departed and came to Pilate, as it was commanded him. And he told the same Pilate what had been commanded to him by Tiberius Caesar, saying, "Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans, thy lord, having heard that in this city there is a physician who healeth diseases by his word alone, earnestly entreateth thee to send him to heal his disease." And Pilate was greatly terrified on hearing this, knowing that through envy he had caused him to be slain. Pilate answered the messenger, saying thus, "This man was a malefactor, and a man who drew after himself all the people. So after the counsel taken of the wise men of the city, I caused him to be crucified." And as the messenger returned to his lodgings, he met a certain woman named Veronica, who had been acquainted with Jesus, and he said, "O woman, there was a certain physician in the city who healed the sick by his word alone. Why have the Jews slain him?" And she began to weep, saying, "Ah me, my Lord, it was my God and my Lord, whom Pilate through envy delivered up, condemned, and commanded to be crucified." Then he, grieving greatly, said, "I am exceedingly sorry that I cannot fulfill that for which my Lord hath sent me." Veronica said to him, "When my Lord went about preaching, and I was very unwillingly deprived of his presence, I desired to have this picture painted for me, that, while I was deprived of his presence, at least the figure of his likeness might give me some consolation. And when I was taking the canvas to the painter to be painted, my Lord met me, and asked whither I was going. And when I had made known to him the cause of my journey, he asked for me, for the canvas, and gave it back to me, printed with the likeness of his venerable face. Therefore, if thy Lord will devoutly look upon the sight of this, he will straightway enjoy the benefit of health. Is a likeness of this kind to be procured with gold or silver?" he asked. "No," said she, "but with a pious sentiment of devotion. Therefore I will go with thee, and carry the likeness to Caesar to look upon, and will return." So Volosianus came with Veronica to Rome, and said to Tiberius the emperor, "Jesus, whom thou hast long desired, Pilate, and the Jews have surrendered to an unjust death, and through the envy fastened to the wood of the cross. Therefore a certain matron hath come with me, bringing the likeness of the same Jesus, and if thou wilt devoutly gaze upon it, thou wilt presently obtain the benefit of thy health." So Caesar caused the way to be spread with cloths of silk, and ordered the portrait to be presented to him. And as soon as he had looked upon it, he regained his original health. Then Pontius Pilate was apprehended by command of Caesar and brought to Rome. Caesar, hearing that Pilate had come to Rome, was filled with exceeding wrath against him, and caused him to be brought to him. Now Pilate brought with him the seamless coat of Jesus, and wore it before the emperor. As soon as the emperor saw him, he laid aside all his wrath, and forthwith rose to him, and was unable to speak harshly to him in anything. And he who was in his absence seemed so terrible and fierce, now in his presence is found comparatively gentle. And when he had dismissed him, he soon became terribly inflamed against him, declaring himself wretched because he had not expressed to him the anger of his bosom. And immediately he had him recalled, swearing and protesting that he was a child of death, and unfitted to live upon the earth. And when he saw him, he instantly greeted him, and laid aside all the fury of his mind. All were astonished, and he was astonished himself, that he was so enraged against Pilate while absent, and could say nothing to him sharply while he was present. At length, by divine suggestion, or perhaps by persuasion of some Christian, he had him stripped of the coat, and soon resumed against him his original fury of mind. And when the emperor was wondering very much about this, they told him that it had been the coat of the Lord Jesus. Then the emperor commanded him to be kept in prison till he should take counsel with the wise men what ought to be done with him. And after a few days, sentence was given against Pilate, that he should be condemned to the most ignominious death. When Pilate heard this, he slew himself with his own dagger, and by such a death put an end to his life. When Pilate's death was made known, Caesar said, "Truly, he has died a most ignominious death, whose own hand has not spared him." He was therefore fastened to a great block of stone and sunk in the river Tiber. But wicked and unclean spirits, rejoicing in its wicked and unclean body, all moved in the water, and caused in the air dreadful lightning and tempests, thunder and hail, so that all were seized with horrible fear, on account which the Romans dragged him out of the river Tiber, bore him away in derision to Vienna, and sunk him in the river Rhone. For Vienna means, as it were, way of Gehenna, because it was then a place of cursing, and evil spirits were there, and did the same things. Those men, therefore, not enduring to be so harassed by demons, removed the vessel of the cursing from them, and sent it to be buried in the territory of Lasania. But when they were troubled exceedingly by the aforesaid vexations, they put it away from them, and sunk it in a certain pool surrounded by mountains, where even yet, according to the account of some, sundry diabolical contrivances are said to issue forth. Now, the Veronica, the cloth of Veronica, or I don't remember what this icon is called. This is the older story. Newer stories have said that the cloth was used to wipe off Jesus' face when he was going to and fro, or something. But in the last program, the husband, the Synaxaria of the Greeks, under October 28th, intimate and commemorative of Procla, the wife of Pilate. The Ethiopic calendar inserts Pilate and his wife, Procla, under June 25th. The reason for putting these names among the saints is that Pilate, by washing his hands, attested the innocence of Jesus, while Procla sought to dissuade her husband from complying with the Jews. The above story makes a Pilate almost a martyr. The Tertullian makes him almost a saint in Apollonius Gentis, caption 21. There's no historical Christianity before Paul. And Paul, for the most part, he's later than Christians say he was, more like the 60s or something, when he became Christian. So the 60s, 70s, and the 90s, the book of Revelation was a rewrite from an earlier text. The Gospel of John was a rewrite from an earlier text. Other chapters were added to these books, and we'll talk more about that sort of thing otherwise. We see certain, but yeah, it doesn't seem that anybody in that first generation, until Paul went about with his doctrine, was ever known to be Christian. So, but again, this is